Now on BBC World News, the biggest African and international news stories. Focus on Africa. This is Focus on Africa. I'm Lukwesa, Burak. Our top stories today. Why it matters to have a seat at the most important table in the world. Why have no African countries been offered a permanent position on the UN Security Council?
What the continent would want is to be in a position where it can make its choice about how global events affect it and how much it actually wants it to participate in these broader global debates.
There's stigma around surrogacy in Kenya, but one community has an unconventional approach. Also in the programme, security challenge. With no state presence in sight, armed groups run much of northern Mali. We have a report from a city where Tuareg rebels hold a fragile peace. And in the sports news, Kenya's Lilian Ranguruk is banned after returning a positive doping test, the 8th Kenyan now to be banned since the beginning of July. Well, hello and welcome to Focus on Africa, coming to you from BBC World News. Now, as world leaders continue to meet at the United Nations General Assembly in New York, we're going to start today's show with a very simple question. Why are there no African countries with a permanent seat on the Security Council? For nearly 70 years, its mission has been to ensure global peace and security. In reality, that means introducing sanctions, regimes, and authorising or vetoing the use of force in conflicts around the world. And those are measures which are very familiar to a number of countries across the continent. Just today, the Security Council met to discuss Russia's invasion of Ukraine, a conflict which has had a very direct impact on the African continent when it comes to food security. Surely, some would argue, the continent should be able to have its say, especially when the AU President Macky Sall had this to say yesterday, saying that the continent risks becoming a breeding ground for a new Cold War. Now, this is actually a sentiment that has been echoed by the US President Joe Biden. So let's have a quick listen to what he had to say yesterday.
The United States supports increasing the number of both permanent and non-permanent representatives of the Council. This includes permanent seats for those nations we have long supported and permanent seats for countries in Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean. The United States is committed to this vital work.
So this isn't just a problem with representation at the UN Security Council. Many are saying that there just isn't adequate engagement at an international level with the African continent. Now, at a summit in the Netherlands earlier this month, which was set up to discuss structural financing for climate adaptation in Africa. Remember, COP27 is coming up. That's going to be held in Egypt. The only main Western leader to appear in person was the Dutch host, the Prime Minister, Mark Rutte. And you can see him at the centre of the table here, smiling and just looking to the side. He said, well, or rather, it was said at the time, I cannot help but note with sadness the absence of leaders from the industrial world. Again, that was Macky Sall speaking. So let's just take a quick look at the makeup of the UN Security Council. Now, it is composed of 15 members in total. 5 are permanent. That's China, France, the Russian Federation, the UK and the United States. And 10 non-permanent members elected for 2-year terms by the General Assembly. Currently, Kenya is on that board. Now, its membership runs out this year, along with Gabon and Ghana. Their membership runs out next year. So, can the UN be reformed to give Africa a louder voice? Well, the BBC Africa reporter Ian Wafula took up the issue with Rishon Chimboza, who is the Managing Director for Africa at the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change.
I think when we look at the issue of UN security,